is the court is going to instruct you as to some lesser included offenses to these aggravated murder counts. Just murder. It's kind of odd to just say just murder, but as opposed to aggravated murder. You're only going to decide a lesser included offense if he's not guilty or you can't decide the aggravated murder. The judge is going to instruct you as to the law on that. But in essence, that's what the defense argument is. That because he's cooperative, because he wants to talk and does so freely, that somehow he's not guilty of these counts, which of course is ludicrous. As we discuss the defendant's level of quote-unquote cooperation, we've seen him lie. We heard him lie. We demonstrated that today. What he likes to do is talk. If he was cooperative and straight up with you, he would just say, here's what happened. And he's apparently incapable of doing it. Now, murder, as the lesser included offense, is the purposeful killing of another. He's guilty of that. We know that. But he's guilty of aggravated murder. You're going to consider that first. The judge will instruct you. You consider that count of aggravated murder. If you find that he's not guilty or you can't come to a unanimous conclusion, you may proceed to deliberate on murder. Regular murder, plain murder, ignores all the facts and evidence in this case. It ignores all of it. Defendant wants you to ignore the totality of the evidence. Pick out sections that, well, believe this, but we're not going to discuss this. We're not going to discuss that it's brewing at the BP. We're not going to discuss what it means to use her. We're not going to discuss the fact that you get to look at all the circumstances in evidence. You get to look at all of it, the totality of what he's talking about. There are two important instructions. The key instructions really in this case for your deliberations in determining this. And that's that definition of while and purpose. The defendant's purpose will show you what he's doing on the while. The death must occur as part of the acts leading up to or occurring during or immediately after the commission or fleeing immediately after commission. There's a typo there. It should be fleeing. Kidnapping of Elizabeth and kidnapping and or rape and or aggravated robbery as to Stacy. And the death was directly associated with the commission or the flight immediately after the commission of the offense of kidnapping for Elizabeth, kidnapping and or rape and or aggravated robbery of Stacy. Again, it only takes one. But part of the acts leading up to, and here's what Mr. Whitney is arguing to you in essence. He wants you to lop off the S from act. He's telling you it's an independent act. Well, yeah, it raped her, but not during these acts. The death didn't occur during that. He's done, right? Or he didn't kidnap her. He apparently was done with the kidnapping somehow when the death occurred. You can't parcel these things out. And the court is going to instruct you that it's acts. Acts occurring during the commission of a kidnapping. She's not free to leave. During the rape. During the aggravated robbery. And purpose. Doing it intentionally and not accidentally. Indicates it by his conduct. So he's expressed it to others. He's expressed it, as Mr. Whitney pointed out. Dorsey, Lay, Major. But he's indicated it by his conduct. We know his conduct, right? We've seen that. How do you determine it? The manner in which it's done, the means used, all the facts and circumstances in evidence. So let's consider those as to Elizabeth Griffith. What are those facts? What are those circumstances? What has the defendant expressed to others? We know this killing is done with prior calculation and design. He tells you he'll trade her life, his life, for hers. That requires thought. That requires a definite plan. There's a definite process by which he arrives at that. And imagine this defendant. What do we know about this defendant? We know that he's talking to someone that is childlike, that misconstrues cues sometimes, and he's sitting there playing Yahtzee with her. Now we can imagine and infer from the evidence what Elizabeth Griffith is thinking. She's thinking that as she's talking about her problems, she's talking to a friend, somebody that she can trust, somebody that she's talking to back and forth. And this is what affects her. It's at night. We know she's not calling the hotline, because ordinarily she's calling the hotline, right? That's what Tina Schwartz says. But she's not. She's talking to Shawn Grate. And what is Shawn Grate thinking? I'm going to free her from this world. I'm going to free her from this misery. Even goes so far as to think, boy, there's a lot of people that know I live here. How am I going to get away with this? She's playing Yahtzee, talking to a friend about what interests her. He's thinking about killing her, how he's going to do it, when he's going to do it, and how she might react to it. The specifications. 2 persons. When Mr. Whitney questions how there can be some sort of link between these two, the court is going to read you the instruction that says there must be a factual link. The circumstances, the means used. It's got a whole laundry list of things. We had the slide up there for you earlier. All of those are a consideration. Any one of them will link these. And there isn't just one thing that links these. He admits when he's talking to Kim Major, she says, how come 2 in such a short period of time? We're talking about homicide here. It's not really a long period of time in between these. Same house, same means used, both women, as Mr. Whitney pointed out. I forgot that one, thank you. Both kidnapped, both found naked. There's lots of factual links there. Both premeditated. Now as to Elizabeth here, the specification 2, occurring while kidnapping. Part of the act. We saw the kidnapping on video. What's he tell us? She started freaking out. You tried to hurt me. Get away from me. He tries to give her a hug. What's he say? She kept resisting. Resisting tells you what she's doing. It tells you what's going on there. You tried to hurt me. Get away from me. She's resisting that kidnapping. She's resisting that restraint of her liberty. That she is restrained by force of his hands on her neck. You could even find, based on these facts, that she was led upstairs by deception. You could find she came to that house by deception. All of which constitutes a kidnapping. And as soon as she's not free to leave, she's kidnapped. Period. And the death occurs upstairs while she remains restrained of her liberty. And he is therefore guilty of aggravated murder as to Elizabeth Griffith, in addition to the premeditated count. And let's discuss this for a second. All of the facts and circumstances and the defendant's conduct. There she is, in the closet. Why is she like this? The defendant says he found her to move her. Remember that when Kim Major's talking to him. Why is she bound? Why is she naked? Oh, well, she took her shirt off, and then, there was a struggle, and it came off, and, which isn't helping him if there's a struggle with his kidnapping thing, right? But I did that to move her into the closet. Folks, if you can stand to look at it and you really feel the need to get down and dirty with this, look at the way she's bound. Her hands are behind her back. She has ligatures on both ankles, extending up. One is not tied to anything. It must have come undone or what have you. The other one's around her neck. Naked, face down, head first into that closet. She is not bound in a way that makes her easier to carry. Why are her legs spread apart? Why is she in there like that? If you were going to kill somebody in that bedroom and put them in the closet, you would just drag them into the closet. He rolled Stacy into a blanket and took her down in the basement. He's surely capable of getting her in the closet. But her legs would be flopping around, or an arm. You can grab one, put her in there. You wouldn't tie her in that way with those clothes. Head first in the closet. And if you've ever drug anything, wouldn't it be easier to just grab an ankle or two and drag her in there? But what would happen if you did that? Her feet would be where her head is. So why is she there? Why is she bound? And why are we arguing about whether she was killed while she was kidnapped when she's naked and bound in the closet, dead? He is guilty of kidnapping Elizabeth Griffith, of isolating her on the second floor of that house. He's then guilty of the premeditated killing of her. And he's guilty of having once kidnapped her, of killing her during the course of that kidnapping. And then we get to Stacy Hicks. Prior calculation and design. We've heard that. Just a sneaky woman. Her fate was sealed when she lied. Tells Kim Major that you know she's going to say something wrong. And most importantly, I'm going to use her. Now, yeah, he's talking and he likes to talk, but he doesn't throw words around lightly, does he? This is a guy we've had to listen to those pauses. We listen to the pauses before he answers because he's thinking about his answer. What to say? What should I tell this detective? We know he's lied to them on occasion about the facts because his stories change. There's 3 different versions of macing her. He's got 2 versions of killing her by choking her and 2 more where he's twisting the ligature around her neck. I'm going to use her. And as Mr. Whitney points out, again, thank you, this isn't one rambling interview. He speaks to her on the 13th. He does it again on the 15th. He does it on the 27th, October 4th, and October 5th. He has periods of time where he goes back to sit by himself and figure out what he should say. He's already told them about Stacy, but in the one clip when she comes back, talking about the journal, he says, oh yeah, I know what I wanted to tell you about Stacy. I'm going to throw another version at you, is basically what he's doing. I'm going to use her. And when he says that, it's based on the conversation that we know took place with Corey. Corey tells you about it. Wayne Bright tells you about it. Nathan Keck says he's on the phone. And again, as we discuss with Elizabeth, Elizabeth thinks she's playing Yahtzee and just talking to a friend. He's thinking about killing her. Stacy Hicks thinks she's buying a cup of coffee for a guy who stopped by. Nice guy, stopped in the rain to help change. Stood there and waited for Wayne Bright with her. Wayne Bright shows up with the tools. He doesn't leave. He changes the tire. That's who she thinks she's talking to. And that's not at all who he's thinking to. The whole time he's thinking, wow, just another sneaky woman. It's brewing. And when he says it's brewing, he is formulating a plan. And that plan includes homicide. And that is prior calculation and design, folks. Specifications, any one of these. You find he was doing it while she was kidnapped and restrained of her liberty. You find that it was while she was raped, or the aggravated robbery. He's guilty of count 8 and specification 2 to 7 and 8. Don't forget, not that it's possible, the video. Look at that video. Look at the terror in her eyes. Look at the injury to her eye. And Exhibit 113. There she is, ladies and gentlemen, on the floor of the basement under the trash. Why is her skirt way up here? If we're done with the rape, if we're done, and that was finished, she's free to go. If she's no longer restrained of her liberty, why is she like this? It's because that is a lie. It is a lie that she was done being raped. It's a lie that she was not restrained of her liberty anymore. This is what it means to use her. You could find on these facts that she was removed from BP to covert court by deception. He certainly didn't say, hey, come on in because I'm going to rape you. Did he? Restrain the liberty of Stacy by force, could be either or. He definitely restrained, we saw it on the video, for the purpose to engage in sexual activity. Folks, that was his penis he was trying to rub on her mouth in that clip we watched. Same with the specifications to 9 and 10, sexual motivation. You'll have the video back there if you really feel the need. Now, the purpose to terrorize or inflict serious harm, serious physical harm. In count 10, he can't kill her at BP. He can't rape her at BP. He can't rob her at BP. We know Nathan Keck's inside. There's other people in line. Wayne Bright was there. He's starting to formulate this plan in his head, right? It's brewing. I'm thinking, just another sneaky woman. I'm going to use her. You know what he can't do at BP? He can't use her. He has to go to his house. If he is going to fully use her, he must kidnap her and keep her to effectuate all of his purposes. All of them. And that includes aggravated robbery. He needs to kidnap her. Then he can sexually gratify himself with her, kill her, steal her stuff, and then dump her with the trash. Now, counsel specifically says, well, the theft offense, the stealing occurred after her death. Probably. Probably, it makes sense, right? But that ignores purpose and intent. The intent to steal. At what point did this defendant formulate the intent to steal from Stacy Hicks? That is the real question. That's the determining factor. If he formulated the intent to steal, if use her includes stealing from her, taking her property and converting it to his own, it's brewing at the BP. So regardless of what happens in there, he's got this plan to use her. But he also can't just come out and say, here's what happened. That's not what he does. Each time he opens his mouth to discuss it, it changes a little bit. In fact, there's 3 different Mace stories.
Did she die during that? or did she die? Well, you already told me how she died with the strangulation. How far after
She
that?
was fine at the end until I started video, and then she acted okay, and she was awkward and worse. I started video, and then when she started acting up in the video.
How far after the video was made did you strangle her?
I gave her a leeway, right? I set her mace right there.
Say again?
I wasn't on the other side of the room.
Yeah.
Her mace was right there.
Okay.
She grabbed her mace, sprayed me. I just grabbed her up, choked her up.
And that was how long after?
15 minutes.
Did you guys have oral sex?
You say there, everything was fine and dandy till I started videoing her. We know it wasn't, because of her eye. It wasn't fine and dandy. Just grabbed her and choked her out. But again, I'm on the other side of the room. I left her mace there. There's that cat and mouse game again, isn't it? See what she'll do. Will she make a play for the mace? If you even want to believe she ever maced him at all. We'd like to think so.
Stacy, a lot of them were sitting side by side at the same time, the whole time. And here, when I stand up, go across the room, she just still stays it. She didn't feel threatened or nothing. We were getting along still.
Okay.
So somewhere along the line, she felt threatened. And I was still thinking about this. What went wrong exactly with Stacy? Because I didn't have those thoughts. But I do remember when she grabbed her mace and she missed me the first time. And then I turned her around. I was on the bed, and she did was the backhand and kind of got me.
I'll spray it again.
Yeah, she just sprayed me again. The shot, you know what I mean? It was just, dang, I just lost it. And then I just turned her around, right? Did pretty much the same thing. I just clenched on, did not let go.
Now that's different from the first version. First version, she shoots him with maces on the other side of the room. Now, this is that video version. Misses him, and then he demonstrates the backhanded shot of mace. That's different. The truth shouldn't change, folks. The truth shouldn't change. Saying she didn't feel threatened, though, we know she was. We know what was happening.
Yeah, she got her last word, and then she wants you to realize, that didn't work out. Saying she didn't mean to. It's like her nerves, like it's just happened. You know what I mean? It's like, well, maybe it was just meant to be, I guess. I don't know.
So there's version 3. Now, apparently, she's free to go. Ready to go. Has her keys, told her she could leave. She's supposed to walk out the door. And instead of running out the door, she decides to mace him. Common sense, folks. Common sense tells you that's not true. What those 3 versions of the mace, though, tell you is that the mace interrupted the fun. He was still kidnapping her. He was still raping her. He had already formulated that intent to steal her stuff after he's done using her. So the intent plus the acts leading through. But the mace interrupted the fun. How much longer would she have been there before he killed her had she not maced him? That's the question. It doesn't really matter. He's committed all the offenses. And here's the problem with this whole idea that she was free to go. And I suspect you're going to hear in a moment a significant amount of, well, she's free to go. She could have left. We were done. The raping was done. The kidnapping was done. She could just walk out. Stacy Hicks was free to go. If all of those acts had already happened, she had her keys, told she could leave. Rape was done, kidnapping's done. We're going to ignore his statements about it's brewing at BP and her fate was sealed when she denied the sugar daddies. Let's ignore that. Let's give the defendant all the benefit of the doubt. All of that happened. Why is she found dead, naked from the waist down in the basement? With her skirt up around her waist. Why would she be found that way if it's all done? It's all over. She can leave. Here are your keys. Leave. With her skirt up around her waist and no pants on. Really? Use your common sense, folks. All of the facts and circumstances and evidence, the way she's found in the basement, demonstrates all you need to know. It demonstrates his purpose. It tells you what he was doing when he killed her. It tells you all you need to know. She's found that way because he has prior calculation and design. Because he had formulated the intent to rape, rob, and keep her. It's because he used her. And when he was done, there's no sense in dressing her. He tells you he wrapped her in a blanket and drug her down the steps with her head hitting the steps as they went down. And then he rolled her out onto the floor and threw the rest of the trash on top of her. Because he was done using her. This defendant is guilty of count 7, aggravated murder, killing Stacy with prior calculation and design. He's guilty of both specifications there too. He's guilty of aggravated murder, killing her while she was still kidnapped, killing her as part of this course of conduct, rape and robbery. Guilty of count 9, sexual motivation spec. That was his key purpose, to commit that rape. Count 10, he kept her, inflicted terror on her, inflicted serious physical harm on her. Count 12, aggravated robbery, he took her stuff after killing her. Defendant is guilty of every remaining count in the indictment, beyond a reasonable doubt, ladies and gentlemen. You've been more than patient. You've been more than attentive. And I thank you for that consideration. And I'll thank you in advance for your common sense. Thank you.